Hi everyone, I'm Stephanie Weaver, author of the upcoming Migraine Relief Plan Cookbook. Welcome back to the Blue and Yellow Kitchen. In each episode, I make a dish inspired by a new book while talking to its author. Today's book is Beautiful Country, and I'm making tomatoes stir-fried with eggs. I'd like to welcome author Qian Julie Wang of Beautiful Country. Thanks so much for being here, Qian Julie.
Hi, Stephanie. Thank you so much for having me. I am delighted to be here.
So give us a quick overview of your memoir. Tell us kind of where it starts, how old you are, just the overview.
The memoir follows me and my parents when we first immigrate to New York City in 1994. At that point, I am 7 years old, and I am surprised and confused to learn that we are living in undocumented status. And it follows us for the next 5 years over the course of our early immigration journey, grappling with physical labor and poverty and hunger.
Thank you. And it's such a beautiful story. We'll talk a little bit in a minute about why I chose it. But explain the title for us, because there's multiple meanings to the title, and I thought it was such a beautiful choice for the book. So tell us what the title means and kind of why you chose it.
Beautiful Country is a direct translation of the Chinese word for America, Meiguo. And my editors and agents and I like the title because it also represents a sense of irony. It shows the beacon of light that America is seen as abroad, especially in third world and developing countries, but also the reality of America and the fact that it is not always so beautiful.
Yes. And the book really beautifully describes that and showcases that. So you're a successful civil rights attorney, and you're by any standards very, very successful. Certainly in American standards, you're very successful. So why did you feel it was important to tell this part of your life story?
I was in commercial litigation, which is representing corporations and multimillionaires and billionaires in high value and complex litigation for most of my legal career. And I ended up there because I too defined success in American terms, which is material wealth, status, and prestige. But it wasn't until I got there and no longer had to worry about finding enough to eat or having enough money to pay the rent that I realized that that's actually not what success is. Success is community, integrity, and meaning. And upon reflection in that world, I realized that I had come a really far way and become divorced from who I really was, that little girl who had grown up poor and hungry and who hung on to the joys and jokes from her parents. And it wasn't until I started to embrace the truth of my past, which I had rejected and hidden and lied about for most of my life, that I realized that there was power in the story and that I had a unique and distinct privilege to tell it, because there are so many immigrants and undocumented immigrants who do not have the luxury of speaking up.
Thank you, and thank you so much for telling it, because it's just so beautiful. Do you have a favorite scene or character in the book?
Definitely the Tamagotchi scene, not to spoil it for anyone, but I share how in fifth grade, like many children my age, I scoured the New York City streets looking for a Tamagotchi. I was hopeful that a classmate or a fellow kid might have lost one and dropped it in a gutter, and I would find it because it was all the rage back then, and I couldn't dream of affording one. And my father noticed me staring at the ground as I was crossing the street, and he grew very concerned. He's like, I don't want you to be hit by a car because you're looking on the ground for something. What are you looking for? And I explained it to him that it was an electronic chick, and he had no idea what I was talking about. But unbeknownst to me, was taking mental notes, because one day he returned home with a paper bag, and I opened it up, and there it was. He had saved up to buy me my own Tamagotchi, so I wouldn't be crossing the street without looking both ways. And it remains one of the best memories of my life.
Oh. I fell in love with your parents in the book. They're so warmly rendered and truthfully rendered, it felt like to me. The reason that I chose this book for the show is because was such an incredible rendering of the child's point of view, how confusing it was for your father to go away ahead of you and for a long time was away, and you only got to talk to him on the phone. And then when you and your mother finally make the trip, you're kind of having to caretake her, and then you get to the United States and you don't know the language and you don't know anyone. And it just, for me, so brought forward what that experience must be like for millions of people who come here or go to other countries and try to have a better life. And it also has so many parallels to today's news, the headlines that are happening, violence against Asian Americans, the racism, all of it. So, sometimes literature can just do that for us. It can bring us into someone else's world, whether it's through fiction or memoir. And I just wanted to showcase it because I think it's such a fantastic story, and you've done such an incredible job of bringing it to life. So thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Thank you for reading. It means the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So the recipe I'm making today is tomatoes stir-fried with eggs, and we're going to talk in a minute about why I chose that one. I've asked Qian Julie to read a passage from the book, and while she's doing that, I'm going to make the dish and plate it up, and then we'll talk about the recipe. So I'm just going to show off, so we've got some tomatoes, we've got our eggs, we've got green onion, two forms of it, and the sliced garlic and the sesame oil. So Qian Julie, will you go ahead and set up what you're going to read for us?
Sure. This scene takes place when my father leaves China. We are at Beijing Airport, and I am in an airport, really, for the first time. My father leaves China 2 years before I did, so I was only 5 years old at the time of this passage. Mama and Baba took me to the airport with them on the day he left. I had never been to an airport before. It looked like a giant mall, except it didn't have places that sold dolls. We waited with Baba in a long line with other daren. Everyone in line had suitcases so big I could have fit inside them with all of my toys. As I looked around, my eyes landed on 3 figures dressed all in black with strips of white. I pointed and screamed, and soon the black blurred in my eyes because I was crying. One of the figures said something to me in passing. I didn't speak English at the time and wouldn't know that the figure was a nun and that she was blessing me until Baba explained. In the moment, I knew only that the figure spoke in an incomprehensible tongue and had blue eyes, which I didn't even know existed. By the time my tears had dried and my throat was too hoarse to let out a single decibel, Baba had dropped off his me-sized suitcase on a moving belt. We then took escalators and walked down one hall after another before being directed to a doorway with ropes around it and daren who were dressed all alike. Baba stooped down to my level, and I knew then that what he was about to say was very serious and for me only. It was important for me to listen closely, I knew, and I dared not breathe or blink. 乖，西摩后，听妈妈的话，啊? I nodded. I would be a good girl and listen to Mama. Try your best to nap at lunchtime, even if it's just pretend, and even if you're just asking questions with your eyes closed. I nodded some more. I was still moving my head when Baba bent over and pressed his lips to my left cheek. Out of nowhere, there was a frog in my throat and a rock in my heart. I watched Baba unfold to his full height. He and Mama exchanged words I was too short to hear. And then, for the only time in my life, I saw them exchange a kiss. He then waved and took big strides toward the ropes and the daren with the same clothes. As Baba was about to walk into the worlds behind the ropes for me, and a cry escaped from my mouth. Baba! Baba would later tell me that he saw my outstretched arms whenever he closed his eyes, every single day for years to come. And in the millisecond that he turned to me, I saw that his face was like mine, yellow and red like our flag, wrinkled like a used napkin. Then, just like that, he was gone.
Oh, Qian Julie, oh my goodness. That passage just almost made me cry, and I've read it a couple times. I chose that one partly because of how heartbreaking it is, but also how it illustrates her child's point of view so beautifully, how everything, she's looking at everything through whether there's toys there or not, and you know, is something scary, and not understanding things. And you read it beautifully. So I'm going to show off the dish, which is also yellow and red, which sort of represents the Chinese flag I heard on some food blogs. And you said this is, how does that look?
Looks gorgeous, and my mouth is watering. That's amazing. Yeah.
This is, tell us, is this dish made all over China, northern China? Like, where is it regionally, and does everyone make it? How common is it?
It's a very common home-style dish in northern China. I don't know if it's as common in southern China, but I have met people from southern China who also make that dish. So my guess is that it's probably pretty prevalent around the country, and it's the easiest, fastest dish to make, and pretty much everyone knows how to make it.
And so that's why we chose it, because it's mentioned in the book. It's also very common in China. It's one I was unfamiliar with, so I was excited to try it. And I'll confess, I'm not usually a fan of stir-fried tomatoes. This is delicious. So you get the fluffy eggs. So they're cooked in a hot wok or a hot, I can show you. I don't have a wok, so I used a nonstick frying pan. You want to break the tomatoes down pretty well, so you can see that they're kind of starting to turn into a sauce here. That's what you're looking for. But you cook the eggs first with high heat with oil, and don't skimp on the oil because that's part of what brings the flavor to it. And then you, one Chinese American food blog suggested that you blanch the tomato to remove the skin. So in the recipe that I'll share, I explain how to do that. And then you just, put it into wedges, and that way you don't have the kind of tougher skin, and it breaks down more into the sauce as it's supposed to. Make sure you don't skip the sesame oil, because that brings part of the really special flavor. The eggs are really fluffy, the tomatoes are saucy, you get the garlic and the green onion, both cooked and raw, and then that sesame oil kind of brings it all together. So thank you so much for bringing this dish into our lives. I'm really excited about it. And it's served with steamed white rice, so traditionally. Yeah. Fantastic. So go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, I hope you enjoy it as much as I did growing up.
Absolutely. So Qian Julie, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Take care.
You'll find the recipe link in the Facebook video or on my website, migraine-relief-recipes.com. Find her at qianjuliewang.com. And if you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend. You can order a copy of Beautiful Country wherever you like to buy books. And if you don't have a book buying budget right now, ask your local library to stock it, because that helps authors too. Follow me at sweavermph and like my Facebook page so you don't miss an episode. Join us next time for another author interview and a dish inspired by their book. Thanks so much for watching The Blue and Yellow Kitchen.